top 5 rosters in the league. Is this an homage to Bucky Brooks?
Well, no, so here's the thing. You might be like, oh, I've seen these before.
Yeah.
We see websites do these all the time, usually top 10s and it's rosters. I'm here to tell you, all those people do them wrong.
Oh.
Because they treat their roster as if it's actually roster excluding the quarterback. What they are giving you is the best 2 through 53s, which is useful and interesting, but that's not the roster.
No.
Last I checked, if you go to any team's homepage, click on the roster button, there's a whole section for quarterbacks because they are on the roster. So these are the 5 best rosters in the league.
This is what separates you from everybody else.
Exactly.
The quarterbacks are on the roster.
They're literally on the roster, so when we talk top 5 rosters, you should include them. Now, it doesn't mean they're the entirety of it, but they obviously impact it. So number 5, the Cincinnati Bengals. You're not going to see them on anybody else's. It's weird. The same people will be like, hey, 5 teams who could win the Super Bowl, they'll be on there, but top 5 rosters can't do that. Well, I don't know who plays in the Super Bowl. Guys on your roster. Joe Burrow, don't love the hair, do love his attitude. So his quotes this offseason I thought have been excellent. And the things he has said about reminding himself about how much the losing hurts, about how hard he has to work. And I think Joe Burrow has the exact right disposition to come back from a wildly frustrating and disappointing year. Not being healthy at the beginning, playing poorly, finally getting healthy, playing great, and then suffering a freak injury. You add to that, they didn't get rid of T. Higgins like I thought they would. They might pay for that down the road, but this year it helps them. Their defense last year was wildly problematic. They bring in Geno Stone, which I like. They had other players in the secondary. I expect a better year from their edges, Hubbard and Hendrickson. Obviously, I think Chase is going to get it done. And I don't think the loss of Joe Mixon is that significant. And they spent a first-round pick on a tackle. He's banged up, but I like that pick. They're number 5. Number 4. Hey there.
No.
Oh, yeah. The Chicago Bears.
Oh, boy.
I would just like to know what the biggest weakness on the roster is. The answer to that is probably left side of the offensive line, but they have a stud right tackle. They have arguably the best 1 through 3 wide receiver group in the league. Not the best 1 or the best 2, but as far as if Keenan Allen's your number 3, DJ Moore, and I think Rome Odunze is a legitimate number 2 the moment he walks into the league. That's great. I love DeAndre Swift. I know a lot of Eagles fans evidently think they're getting a huge upgrade with Saquon. I don't know that I agree with that. This defense was elite the moment they got Montez Sweat last year. They added help in the secondary. Jalen Johnson's one of the 5 best corners in football. Number 4 roster in the league, the Chicago Bears. Number 3. See, the quarterback being on the roster cuts both ways, boys. Okay. The San Francisco 49ers. Everybody has them as the number 1 roster in football, not me. Now, they do have, assuming everyone, I'm assuming Ayuk is gone, but I'm assuming Trent Williams is there. I understand Trent Williams is not currently coming to camp, but nobody thinks he's going anywhere. You have the best left tackle in football, one of the best edges in football, one of the 3 or 4 best tight ends in football, to go along with, when you get Hufanga back, one of the best safeties in football and the best running back in football. I think they will miss Ayuk, assuming he's gone, but maybe at this point, maybe they're able to keep him. You're fine at quarterback. I don't think you're great at quarterback. I don't think you're dead at quarterback. And I also think some of the additions they have tried to make recently to upgrade the offensive line, which, to be fair, the right side of it wasn't elite last year, is smart. And you have the best inside linebacker of his little mini generation in Fred Warner. You'll get Dre Greenlaw back at some point. I have them at number 3. At number 2, the Detroit Lions. They have, in my opinion, clearly, almost unanimously at this point, the best offensive line in football. That makes their quarterback a top 10 quarterback. Jared Goff, in and of himself, is not a top 10 quarterback. In this situation, where he will be protected, where he plays almost all his games indoors, he is a top 10 quarterback. You add to that Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery out of the backfield. I know Gibbs got dinged up, I think, today or yesterday. Amon-Ra St. Brown is a great receiver. Jameson Williams has great talent. He finally showed some flashes of that in the playoffs last year. You upgraded the defense, adding Marcus Davenport and Terrion Arnold in the first round of the draft. I don't see a real weakness on this roster right now. They are the number 2 roster. And then, of course, the number one roster in football is the roster that Patrick Mahomes is on. Why are they the number one roster in football? Well, we can just reveal it. There it is. It's not only because of Patrick Mahomes, but he sure does help. But you also have arguably the league's best defensive player, inarguably the league's most potent playoff weapon in Travis Kelce. He's been a first-round pick on the fastest player in league history. You had the second youngest defense in football last year. That was also statistically the second best defense in football. You lost one piece of it in L'Jarius Sneed, but you brought everyone else back. And I think you upgraded at left tackle with this rookie, Kingsley Suamata. After last year, it was Donovan Smith, and he was dealing with some injuries. They are the best roster in football. Greg Jennings, there it is, 5-1, the 5 best rosters in the NFL.
I don't know if it's the 5 best rosters.
What do you mean you don't know?
I like those rosters. I would add a roster, in that roster being the Texans. Yes, absolutely.
You can't be high on the Texans and Packers.
We are a problem. And you better believe this is a team that is going to be a problem and pose problems for a lot of teams this season. Because of that guy right there, C.J. Stroud, your offensive rookie of the year. Look, for me, when you have a guy like that and you start to add pieces around him and you give him depth, we talk about rosters. We're talking about the depth, not just your number one guy at the position.
It's not the deepest roster. It's the best roster.
We're talking about the best roster and the depth. That's what makes this the best roster, in my opinion. When I look at this, you got the quarterback. That's a given. Obviously, you look at the receivers. You talk about 1 through 3, Tank Dell, Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs. You can go on Robert Woods. You can keep going.
Noah Brown's good.
They have great depth. You got Dalton Schultz at tight end. Two running backs, and Dameon Pierce, Joe Mixon. Defense side of the ball, you got the defensive rookie of the year, and
other than him,
you bookend him with Danielle Hunter, who's a double-digit sacker every single year that he's healthy. You gotta love that. You got 2 young corners, Stingley, and now you added a corner this year. Like, I really like this team, and then. If we're just to put a little cap on it.
Don't say anything about the coach.
Just put a little cap on it. The person in charge of allowing this roster to be configured. Oh, you can look at the head coach.
Okay, but he's not on the roster.
He might as well look. He might as well play too.
Yeah. If we were talking about the top 5 car collections, and you're like, I have a great pool. It's nice, but it doesn't matter. It's not. Listen, I like D'Amico Ryans.
We are a problem.
Okay,
it's like old Nasser. Houston was.
There were 3 teams that were in strong consideration for that spot the Bengals got. 3 other teams. Houston was one of them. We'll see if the other ones are represented by you guys or not. The reason they didn't get in there was I do think the off-season additions are being a little overstated in this regard. I know we talked about it yesterday. I think Danielle Hunter is an excellent player. But Jonathan Grenard was on this team last year, and he was, I think, as good last year as Danielle Hunter. I expect him to be this year, and he's gone. I don't think Joe Mixon's an upgrade. I flatly don't think Joe Mixon's going to be a difference maker for them. I think Diggs is high ceiling, low floor for the Texans, and we'll see. But I understand if it's like he was just over it in Buffalo and still has a lot left and then taking a free agent year, great. If he really is the number 3, I don't know how that will sit with him. I do like Stingley, but Stingley's about the only guy in their back 7 that I love. We'll see about Kamari Lassiter, the guy they spent the 2nd-round pick on. But it's not, listen, the fact that I was considering him means I mostly agree with what you're saying, so I get it. We can't include D'Amico, though, not on the roster. He used to be on the roster. When I covered the team, he was on the roster, no longer on the roster, though. Go ahead, Coach.
Greg, I really liked what you said. And for those of you that are tuning in right now, Greg had a really good list at the top of the show. If you like lists, there's a really good list at the top of the show. To me, I don't know how you don't have the Baltimore Ravens on it, because you prefaced everything with you got to incorporate the quarterback. You got to talk about the quarterback. And isn't it like when you win the Masters, you automatically get a bid the next year? Isn't that how?
Exemption. Yeah. Lifetime, actually.
So you would think that if you win the MVP, your team would automatically get a exemption and be in the top 5 rosters of the league.
Feels like
so you have him, and then you add Derrick Henry. I really like both tight ends.
Look, we're not doing puns.
It wasn't a pun. I had a totally different one, but they had to adjust it a little bit.
Okay, got it. All right.
So you add Derrick Henry to the Lamar Jackson mix, and I really like both tight ends there, and they're not necessarily the best at
No,
wide
but I like
receiver, but they could run the single wing and control most games
well,
with those two guys alone. There's been turnover on defense in terms of the defensive staff, but every year they figure out a way to be really good defensively, and I don't think this is going to be any different. And when you can control the game the way they can control the game, and it's going to be great to see that pairing, because I think they can actually just line up and play some bully ball. And in doing that, now you take pressure off the defense as they come together with the new staff. And the fact that they're not in your top 5, so after you prefaced everything with it starts with the quarterback, and he was the MVP.
So they were one of the other teams that was on the cutting room floor. Here's why. And I'm not even being a smart aleck. I want to know what you think of this. 3 losses on the offensive line. So your left tackle, who's excellent but oft injured, and Ronnie Stanley's there, and Tyler Lindenbaum, who now that Kelsey's retired, is probably the best center in the league. So I mean, those guys are excellent when they're there, and Linderbaum you don't really worry about. But you're starting a 7th-round second-year player right now at left guard, two unknowns on the right side of your offensive line. That doesn't give me huge hope for Derrick Henry with them as far as if they're going to have any push up front. And then on defense, this is not about coaching, but I think Mike McDonald got the most out of a lot of guys who had career years last year on that defense. You lost those players, and so I don't know that aside from Roquan Smith and Kyle Hamilton, who the outstanding blue chip defensive players on this roster are. Those are my 2 legit. And mentioned wide receiver.
I think they're both legitimate concerns, and from the defensive perspective, anytime you change over the staff, there's definitely some transition, but they've done it multiple times.
That's fair.
It doesn't matter who's been in control of that defense, they found a way to be good, and they do a really good job from a draft perspective of inserting pieces into what they want to do. From the offensive line perspective, when you've got a quarterback like Lamar, who's not traditionally going to stay in the pocket anyways, those guys don't matter as much. And we saw what Derrick Henry was able to do with not the best blocking situation, really over the past couple years. So he's made it work. You've got the threat of Lamar. I think the O-line is going to have a lot of pressure taken off because of the way that they can generate.
That's fair. I don't love the receivers. I don't love the offensive line.
They don't even need to catch a ball.
Well, you didn't even mention, I thought you were definitely going to talk about Patrick Ricard, top 3 fullback in the league.
Oh, I do love
I knew you were going to love Patrick Ricard. All right, Wilds.
Well, I'm going to debut a new take. Eagles. 49ers light. Just debuting it. The Eagles are a little bit like the club when you, down the street from the club you want to go into, but then you're like, you can't come in here with like 4 dudes. What are you doing? Like, okay, I guess I'll go down the street to the other club, which isn't as good as the hot club, but you're still in having a good time. Lost to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, 2 great pass catchers, and Saquon Barkley. You know what people are calling Saquon Barkley? Christian McCaffrey-esque.
Okay, yeah.
I'm just saying, Christian McCaffrey-esque. So the offense very similar. The defense, however, I don't think as similar. But I'm leaning on Coach with his 3 Super Bowl rings, much like you leaned on Coach and ignored his vice of running the ball until you started to play college football. Coach has convinced me that Vic Fangio will solve any roster deficiencies on the defense. Coach, you have to back me up here.
I think he'll make a lot of the deficiencies smaller than they were, but they also did a nice job of trying to address the secondary through the draft and free agency.
Okay.
So those 2 things combined, you should see a significant jump.
So here, one of the things that has been the Eagles' calling card the last few years is either the best or the second best offensive line in the league. It's not just the loss of maybe the best center ever, certainly the best center in the last 25 years in Jason Kelsey, the player, but he's calling out the protections. He's communicating. That now all is going to fall, I think, on Jalen Hurts. It's certainly not going to fall, I don't think, on Cam Jurgens, who's stepping in for him. So that concerns me. I am not as high on Saquon Barkley as everyone else, most notably because I didn't stop watching him when he left Penn State or after his rookie year with the Giants. And the defense, I think long-term, those were smart draft picks. I think if you're like, hey, you know what's going to solve our secondary? 2 rookies, a rookie corner and a rookie safety. Those are tough positions.
It'll take some time.
To take some time. So for all those reasons, that's why they're off. I think the least popular sports opinion in America is not loving Saquon Barkley. And I think
but you cornered the market on it. Good job.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get more from the show and to check out clips from other shows on FS1.